Friend, welcome back to Fig and Farm at Home. As we continue along this summer saving series, I have a few things up my sleeves. I am bringing on guest after guest in order to help you really start inching forward. It's not about taking those grand leaps. It's not about taking those, big remodels. It's really about getting started. And so today's guest is doing just that. Her name is Michelle, and she has such fun energy. Her enthusiasm for DIY is really contagious. Michelle and I met a few years ago when we were doing a mastermind for how to grow our podcast. She has her own podcast called Growth Against the Grain, and we were in a small study group together. We instantly became friends, and she is, little fun fact, my first online friend that I got to meet in real life. It was a delight to meet her in person. And if you think that she sounds bubbly, she really is. She is as adorable as she sounds. But her zest for doing things on her own, learning these new skills, and just kind of living life, not just DIY, but life with gusto, is really inspiring. Today, of course, we are just talking about the DIY realm, and I hope you're inspired to take action. I hope that you are inspired to finally just take one little step toward that first project, because that first project, you never know where it's going to lead. Maybe it'll lead to another one, a bigger one, more confidence. Maybe it's going to lead to you feeling comfortable opening up your door to those guests that you just don't feel comfortable opening up to. Whatever it is, friend, I want you to take action. That is the whole point of the Summer Saving Series. All right, friend, I hope that as you are listening, you feel not only inspired, but really encouraged. Like you are sitting with a couple of girlfriends who are giving you a really big pep talk, because you can do it. All right, friend, enjoy the show. We grew up with the phrase, home is where the heart is. But our culture has shifted, and now the message is, home should be Pinterest perfect. I'm calling BS on that message. Home, it's not about the stuff, it's about the story. And whether you know it or not, your home is a reflection of you and is already saying something. So what is it that you want it to say? Hey, I'm Danny, a former first grade teacher turned home decorator. Going from a dual income to a single income so I could stay home with my babies meant budget, like ramen eating, Goodwill shopping budget. And I learned a few things along the way, like how to bring big style to your home without breaking the bank. And I'm sharing it all with you. Tips, tricks, decor, and design advice so you can learn to tell your story with your style. Where you can start living free from the Pinterest perfect trap and start living a life of intention. Welcome to Fig and Farm at Home, where we design happy living and where it doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. Hey, Michelle, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, I am thrilled that you're here. I've introduced you to my guests or my listeners already, and told them how we know each other. You're my very first online friend. Do you know that?
No way.
Life? Yes.
No way. I know, that was so fun. I was dreaming about that coffee and those pastries. Oh my.
I know. It's a real treat to go there. And like every Father's Day, birthday, Mother's Day, that kind of thing, it is the place.
Every Wednesday? Like what?
Don't wait for the special occasion.
No, all the time. Oh my gosh. So yummy.
Yeah. Awesome. But why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into this DIY journey?
Okay. Well, I have always wanted to be a DIYer. Like, oh my gosh, HGTV came out and I was like, this is my calling, but I have no experience. I have a drill. Like that's it. But before I go to that, okay. So I am a wife and a mom. Actually, my husband and I are celebrating our 27th anniversary tomorrow.
Yay! Congrats.
How wild is that? Tomorrow from the day that we're recording this. I don't know when this records. So yeah, 27 years tomorrow. We have 3 daughters that are 21, 18, and 14. So I will have 2 girls in college.
Oh,
Wild. It's
wild.
crazy, crazy, crazy. And then my youngest is starting high school.
Oh,
so it's just crazy.
Like grow up too fast.
It's terrible. It's really awful. my neighbor has a toddler and I'm like, can we just keep him like this age, like forever? And so
Yeah.
we're working on a formula, people. Like if we can make it, we will let you know. Um, but so my DIY dreams all came true when we bought our house. So it's been 2.5 years, and we had lived in this house and rented it for 10 years prior to that, roughly. Yeah, 10 years prior to that. And then we had the opportunity to buy the house, which we live in Southern California. It's like a nothing house and the housing prices are ridiculous. I was talking to another friend of ours, Elise, in Australia, and she was like, the prices, she's like, I don't know what people are buying in America for 30,000 or $300,000. I'm like, I don't know what they're buying either. Anyways, so we finally bought our house. I would do little things here and there, but when it's a rental, you're just putting holes in the wall to hang a picture. So we bought our house, and a few months later we finally got around to ripping out this ridiculous fireplace that was right smack dab in the middle of the room. And I do remember, Danny, you going, you don't have masks on, you don't, because we were ripping out drywall and we're like, it's fine. And it's like all over the place. And we didn't, which is going to give you like an insight into my, like, let's just figure it out as we go. Like, how bad? And then literally 3 weeks later, we had a fire in our garage.
Yeah.
And it is, so anyone who's tempted to be like, oh my goodness, and feel sorry, do not feel sad for us at all. Everyone was safe, alive, everything's fine. And we got to rip out our kitchen and we got to do new bathrooms and we got to do all this stuff. And like, it was like all my life I had been waiting for this moment to really unleash all my DIY hopes, dreams, desires, like demo day. Like, how many times have you watched Chip and you're
Yeah.
like, I want to do demo day, and you got to, and it was like, it's unleashed this monster inside me, and it's so much fun. And I'm not the best at it at all. Like, I'm just figuring these things out. And in fact, I just stopped helping my neighbor install cabinets into her upstairs, and I would told Danny when we started, I'm like, so 1/8 of an inch is a big difference when you're dealing with walls, you know,
Measurements matter.
measurements matter. And I'm kind of like an ish person, like when I talk about raising my kids and when we had, naps, I'm like, well, we're on the ish system. Like,
Yeah.
so ish for naps is great. Ish for two walls, not
Not
so
too
much. So I have like drywall dust and like wood dust in my hair because we were sanding the door frame. And so I just kind of like learn as I go, and most things don't require precision. And that works for me.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. For those of you who are wondering, like, oh, is she as bubbly as she sounds? Yes, she is. Also, can we just highlight we've got pink hair? I mean, it is so incredibly you. And I'm going to make sure that everyone can go to your little Instagram so they can see you in action. But you
Sure. You need to see all of it.
you crack me up because I love it. I mean, you just really you went in with gusto, girl, to this.
Totally.
There was no looking back. But here's my question for you, and maybe it is in the answer of you renting, but what was holding you back before? Was it that you were renting, or was it like, did you have any hesitations other than you didn't own the house that you wanted to put holes in?
Yeah, I really do think renting was a big thing. I would paint, like I always figured if we left, he's going to have to paint the house anyways, especially at that time when you're in a house for, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, like it has to be painted.
Yeah.
So I had painted one wall black. And I had done painting inside. We got new floors. He was so kind and ripped up the carpet and did new floors. And what happens when you give a mouse a cookie? All of a sudden the walls are really ugly. So my mom and I painted the walls and did stuff like that. So, but to do the big stuff, like I wasn't going to rip out his fireplace, even though I knew it was going to be an improvement for him. So I would definitely say it was just the confines of renting. And there certainly is more that you could do when you're renting, peel and stick wallpaper, and there's so many renter friendly things to do, but I'm kind of like an all or nothing. Like I don't want to just kind of like peel and stick a little. Like I want to do the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And to go on that point really quickly, like you can, you might not necessarily, if you're renting, do anything to the walls other than paint, but you could like build your furniture, right?
Totally.
You could paint furniture. You could do that
Yeah.
kind of beautification. Um,
Yeah.
okay, tell us, other than tearing out your fireplace, which did you put masks on after I said, you need to wear a mask, girl?
Sure.
Okay. Uh-oh.
If that makes you feel better, sure. I'm sure we did.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna
I
say,
don't recall.
yeah. But other than that, what was your very first on your own? Like, I'm gonna tackle it. I'm gonna do it. What was your first?
Well, so after that was then ripping out the kitchen. And it was so exciting because I literally had prayed for a flood
Oh,
for a long time because once we owned the home,
yeah,
because literally my cousin had had a flood in her kitchen, she got to redo her kitchen. Another friend, like I had known a number of friends who had floods in their kitchen, and our plumbing is crummy. And so I figured it was like a realistic prayer. Like, Lord, like I want to flood. And I was very genuine. Like, Lord, the only way that we can probably redo the kitchen the way that I want to, trust me, I have pin boards full of like the way to like kind of, so I'm like, I'll paint the tile. I'll figure that stuff out. And I was totally willing to do that. I'll paint the floor tile. I'll paint, but I thought, gosh, if we could really do what we wanted to do, I needed a chunk of change.
yeah.
And I didn't have that. So I really realistically prayed for a flood. And then we had a fire, and my husband was like, well, you prayed for a fire. I was like, I'm not praying for a fire. People die in fires. I'm not that dumb. Like nobody prays for a fire. So the Lord answered. He was so kind. We were so safe and we were totally fine. But because of that, we really got to do what we wanted to do in the kitchen. And I would say that was the first big thing, was ripping out our kitchen, only because we were able to.
Yeah.
If that hadn't been an option and we didn't have the fire, then it probably would have been something smaller, maybe some shiplap on the wall or something. So I don't necessarily say you go from 0 to 1,000. That's kind of how I roll.
But
So
you were able to.
we were able to, and that's really just kind of how like I took advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, now that things have settled and you have the kitchen of your dreams and you have like this has now been a year and a half-ish, right?
Yeah.
In the fire.
Yeah.
What are some other projects you're working on in your home?
Okay. So the first big project we did once we got back in was to put some shiplap on the wall, which I love the shiplap panels. Like my biggest thing is find your shortcuts. Like shiplap is great. And I know, Danny, you have some great tips at, ripping down plywood and all that kind of stuff. I just happened to stumble across shiplap panels that are 4x8 panels, 4 feet by 8 feet. And they're great. They do the job. And I also live in like a modest home. I'm not living in a multi-million-dollar home where granite countertops and precision and the best of the best. So I do think it's important that you understand and be realistic with where you live. And is putting $1,000 wall really gonna be worth your time and money, or like, whatever. So just kind of finding your shortcut. So we did shiplap walls, like board and batten, like the boards, the battens, not the boards. And I look at it now and I see imperfections because my baseboards are
Or
7/8 inch and my molding is like 3/4 inch. No,
oh,
less than that. Flip that. Three
okay.
quarters inch and one is 7/8 inch.
So,
So it sticks out.
yeah,
No, on the very bottom, like nobody would ever know that,
yeah,
but I do. And maybe at some point I'll do it, but I probably won't.
yeah.
It's like, who cares? But my biggest project to date, and the smoothest also at the same time, was when I built out our fireplace.
Oh,
So we ripped out a fireplace. I know someone's like, wait, you ripped out a fireplace. But then we put in an electric fireplace on a wall that was not jetting out into the middle of a room. So I like to imagine myself in a boardroom mid-90s where they're coming up with this home design plan, and they're like, okay, we've got a 2-story, 1,200 square foot home. It's small, right? So downstairs is like 500-600 square feet. I've got a great idea. Got a great, brilliant, beyond brilliant idea. And everyone's just like on the edge of their seat, like,
Yeah.
what in the world? What, John, do you have to say? Because we know it's a man who did this. We are going to cut the room in half with a fireplace that jets out into the middle of the room. And everyone's like, John, it's so smart. Oh my gosh, this is great. And let's make it a design feature because the flue we're going to put on an angle so that it goes up to the side. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Great. So, John, you're an idiot. It actually does not work. It's dumb. We ripped that out. And then on another wall, I just put in an electric fireplace. And the thing that made that so smooth is that I actually planned it out, which really kind of goes against my
Who you are.
nature.
Yeah.
But you do a few things and you spend twice as much money because you didn't plan things out as properly. And sometimes it's because you just don't know. You
Yeah.
don't know that a 2x4 is actually not 2 inches by 4 inches.
Right.
It's again because John decided that, you know what, a 2x4 should be 1 3/4 inch by 3 3/4 inch. That's brilliant. I don't know why, but John, you're killing us here. It's Karen of the men. So like you just don't know some of these things and you don't know. So you do a few things, you get a little confidence and you realize like, okay, 1/8 of an inch actually does matter. And I need to factor that in and I need to know how to do this. And I walked into Home Depot with my chicken scratch plans and I like tell the guy, I'm like, okay, so this is what I'm doing. Is this right? And he's like, yeah. And here's a little tweak. You might want to do this. So that was my biggest project to date and also the smoothest. And like it went as seamlessly as possible because I actually planned it out.
Awesome.
Which you're like, I tell people to plan it out all the time. And it's amazing how it works. So listen to Danny. Whatever Danny says, just do it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can resonate so much with everything you're just saying. I mean, the John who I don't even know. Like, why?
I don't even know.
Why? We can just leave it there. Yeah. Oh, you said so many good things. I mean, okay, planning, of course, is helpful. Yes. But sometimes I want to go back to the just go for it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just go for it. You might not necessarily want to go for it and not have the plan in place, but like, what is the worst that can happen? Maybe, okay, well, let's talk about that for a second, because maybe you have to spend a little more money because you didn't quite measure right. Or maybe, gosh, you painted it and it doesn't quite look right, so you have to repaint it. Maybe you have to tear the thing down. But what is your exit strategy if if you need one? That could be part of the planning process before you even do it.
Totally.
And
well, like I'm working with my neighbor here. So we got 2 pack systems. We planned it out. We measured it out. Walls are not square. I don't care how new your home is. Walls are not square at all, which is so annoying. But
John,
clearly I built these homes because it would not be square at all. But we measured it out and it should fit. Like it really should. We should be right on the money. And we're finding that we're not. So, okay. Do we send one of these back? Like, does she return one of them because literally we're off like 1/8 of an inch? Or I think what we're going to do is we're going to take it apart and I'm going to shave off the bottom and the top shelf. We're going to bring it in. It's going to give us a little bit of options in there. And then like I told her, I said, so your option is you might not be able to have a door that closes on there. You might not have the door there. We'll see. We'll put it on and we'll see. Or you're going to have open shelving. So you're going to have cute decorative baskets and it's going to work either way. So I really feel like you have to throw perfection out the window. And I'm not saying like, oh, if it's not, level, if it's like way off level, like it's okay. Like you want it as close as possible, but good is okay. Good is totally fine. And again, consider what are you using this item for? Like for my neighbor, she just wants to be able to, our homes are built with 0 storage. So she wants to be able to put her husband's shoes in this cabinet. And we have one side that those doors can close. The other side, she wants like all their bathroom stuff, all their like whatever. And she has a toddler. So sure, would it be nice if the door closes? Yeah. And if we can do that, we will. But is it okay if there's a variation on that? Be flexible.
right, exactly. And I think too, I mean, even if your home, like the homes of the people who are listening don't necessarily have storage. I mean, the thing that could be a hindrance for them is that there's no character, right? I mean,
Yes.
when you put your stamp on your home and you add a little bit of character, have a few built-ins or things like that, it just makes your home look different than someone else's. And
Totally.
I don't think I'm speaking to $1 million homeowners. I just don't think I am.
No,
Yeah. And so, what then can we do? We can put our stamp on our home in a lot of ways.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, like, okay, so I have my closet doors here.
Yeah.
They were mirrored closet doors, classic 90s. I mean, what is better than a fireplace in the middle of a room, but mirrored closet doors? It's great. I hated it because I am not a totally neat and tidy person. And all the mirrored doors made me do is like see the things that were out constantly. So I saw Angela Rose had done, I saw her something on Pinterest, of course. She had, put wood on these and done like a chevron pattern on her mirrored closet doors. I love the way it's so simple. It, of course, took me 5 times longer than it should have. And all the things, I spent way more money than I should have because of all the things that we've already talked about. But it adds character to my room in such a different way. It's just black spray paint, like the cheapest wood paneling that you can find, some wood glue or like, epoxy glue, and like
Yeah.
it's easy, but it changes it and it makes it look different and it makes it unique
Right.
and it's relatively easy.
Did you take off the mirror beforehand or did you just put that right on top?
I did.
I
Yeah.
love it. Oh my God.
Yeah. And that's what she had done. I don't know as if I would have thought about that otherwise, but what's actually perfect is I think it's like 1/8 of an inch thickness. And there is 1/8 of an inch difference between the mirror and like the lip.
Yeah.
And so they still slide totally fine behind each other. But when I close that, and it doesn't even matter what's on the other side of my closet door, it's like, when my bed is made and my closet doors are closed, and like, then I'm like, if I could actually just get stuff up on the walls and add some character. But honestly, I feel like paint is the cheapest, easiest way to add character
Yeah.
to your room. And let's say you hate it. Okay, live with it for a minute or not and go get more paint. Like,
Right.
do it again.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's honestly, I don't know if I ever told you this, but that is how I started this whole decorating thing. We were so poor, Michelle, so incredibly poor. And I had just started staying home with Owen, who napped a lot. And I'm like, I can only sleep so much. I can't sleep anymore. And I'm so bored at this downstairs room, which by the way had blue carpet. Like why? I don't even know. John.
Oh my gosh, John. Oh, John.
But one day when he was sleeping, I went out to the garage. We didn't have any money to spend, but I had some leftover paint. And I thought, I wonder what would happen if I striped these walls. I loved it. And it was one of those, oh my gosh, paint makes such a difference moments. It just, I never look back. And
Yeah.
and DIYing, I mean, we're talking about builds and we're talking about shaving off things and whatnot, but it can be literally, it can be empowering to hang your wallpaper
Totally.
or just paint yourself.
Totally.
I talk to so many people who hire someone to paint, which that's fine. If they want to spend their money
Yeah.
that way, it's fine. You can hire me to paint your house for $5,000. I would gladly take it. But you can do it yourself and you can do it.
Oh, totally. Totally. Yeah. We did have our whole house painted during the fire because we had insurance money. Like it's great.
Yeah.
And it was great. Like we were having the entire house painted, but I just painted downstairs. Paint and a chair molding, like
Yeah.
game changer.
Yeah.
Game changer. And honestly, if you want, like if you can frame out your windows
Yes.
with some molding, oh my goodness. Like you want like a night and day difference, go get some 3-inch molding and put it around your windows. 2-inch. I think we have 2.5-inch on ours. It just made it look like a finished house.
Yes. With character. I mean,
Totally.
those windowsills by themselves, again, this is one of those. John, what were you thinking?
Yes.
But it looks so good.
Completely.
So good. This was we did that in our home right when the world was shutting down.
Okay.
We went out, bought all the Home Depot stuff, and said, now's the time. We've got
Ah,
what we thought was 2 weeks off. 2 weeks off. Let's do some projects.
two-ish.
Yeah.
I guess the government works on the ish system too. We won't go there. Okay, so you got your molding done. Yeah. And those are relatively cheap. I mean, and if you
Yeah.
can do a miter cut, like you don't even need a chop saw for that. Like you can do that with a box saw and like have it done and
Yeah.
easy.
Exactly. Easy peasy. Okay, you just said 3 names of saws really quickly, and now my beginner DIYer who was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I'm empowered, I can do it," might be now like, "Oh no, I don't know what those are." So let's
Yeah.
talk tools for just a second. You
Okay.
mentioned that when you first started, you had a drill, an electric
Yep.
drill. What would you say if I were to say, "Hey, Michelle, I want to start today, and I want to know the 5 easiest power tools." What would they be?
That's so funny because I think that's a question that I had asked you.
Yeah.
Like, what are your favorite tools? I mean, I think so much of it depends on what is it that you're wanting to do.
Yeah.
Like, if they're like you and I, then paint is only going to suffice for so long. And that's great. Go get your paint stuff. Like, awesome. But I would say everyone needs an electric drill, a power drill, like the best. Like figure out which brand you want so that you buy all your tools the same so that you have only one set of batteries.
Yes. Yes.
Um, like that is awesome. And then I would say like the first tool I bought myself was my brad nailer.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness gracious. Like if you want to frame your windows, like get that brad nailer. That puppy is, and there's so many fun things that you can do with it.
Yeah. Or
It's the
hang
best.
that shiplap. I mean, that
Hang
is,
that shiplap. Oh, and it's just shing, 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 shing. I love it. So I would say your power drill, your brad nailer. I surprisingly love my circular saw. So that one's going to be a handheld battery. I like the battery operated circular saw. I do feel like there is so much versatility in it. If you only got one saw, like that one is going to do 90% of everything that you need to do. And then if you want to get a little bit bigger, I love my miter saw. I think it's also known as a chop saw. I love that the tools have like 12 names for all the same thing. And so the new person is like, I'm sorry, what? Wait, what
yeah,
is that
yeah.
one? And then at some point I would love to have a table saw. I just don't feel I have the need for it right now because I do have the circular saw. I can do that. But I would say the last tool is a blower.
Oh, oh,
Like
interesting.
I borrow my neighbor's blower all the time because
Yeah.
I've got like sawdust everywhere
Oh,
and I need to blow that stuff off and it's fine and I want to get it out of the garage and
yeah.
um
Oh, interesting. I wouldn't have thought about that. I would have thought of a shop vac, to,
I hate my shop vac.
but blowing it out, I like that plan better.
Yeah. Yeah. Blow it out. I don't like my shop vac. I feel like maybe I have one that's defective or something. I just don't feel like the suction is very good. So that's probably a me problem, but I like blowing it
Yeah, yeah.
out.
And one side note, if you were to have a brad nailer, you would need the air compressor. And an air compressor comes in so handy in order to, well, I do. I
Yeah.
mean, do you, that's how you
I
want.
have a cheapy Ryobi. All my tools for the most part are DeWalt. But I did buy the Ryobi brad nailer because it's inexpensive.
Yeah.
And it came with like 2 batteries and it's easy. So yes, air compressor, definitely if you're gonna go big boy, but this one's great because I can take it with me everywhere. I don't have to start that whole thing up.
Right.
And there's a huge discrepancy in cost. I think mine was like $100, maybe $120, and then to get the compressor. So for the newbie,
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
started with a cheaper one and see how much you love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I actually didn't, I mean, the air compressor was my very first power tool. That was my first thing. That felt like, ooh, I'm stepping up my game just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I used it to paint.
I was just gonna say, if you're gonna paint,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And that was anyway. Awesome. Those are great recommendations. I would also say if you are a little intimidated to do any kind of sawing, because holding that circular saw, that can be a little scary, but a
Totally.
is something that feels a little like, I mean, it's not going to give you as smooth of a cut, but it feels like a nice, oh, I can handle that. I
Yeah.
can, I can do that because
Yeah.
the blade is so teeny tiny.
Yeah. Okay. I have my dad's.
Oh,
What's that one called?
jigsaw?
Jigsaw. Okay. So I have my dad's jigsaw, and I tell you that thing shakes and rattles all over the place.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mess, but it works in a pinch. Like I just put up shiplap paneling in my hallway here, and I had to cut out for the outlet. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I did it. And I was like, oh, I
Right.
did that. Although now I'm noticing I think I'm a little too short at the top, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Caulking does wonders.
Well, no, I need to
Oh,
get the
no.
outlet out to put the little backy things in there to pop it out a little bit more,
Gotcha.
you
Gotcha.
know? So I'm like, ooh, I'll figure it out. I'll
Okay.
figure it out. It'll be fine. It'll be
And I
fine.
and I do actually like your thinking about that because even though what it sounds like, oh, I'm an ish girl, which yes, that's true, but I think even in the DIY world, you do have to have a little bit of ish in you in order
Totally.
to compensate for those not square walls or whatever. You
Yeah.
thought you cut with the jigsaw right around the outlet, but oops, it's not quite. So thinking about then the next, not how to fix it, but just being a little creative with, do you sand it down? Do whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think what is it like necessity is the mother of invention. So, you figure these things out. Not everything's perfect. And the thing that we don't see and what I love HGTV, but it's not real life. Like
Yeah.
you don't my
See
kids
their
wanted
crew of 40 people doing the work for them.
seriously, my kids wanted like a grand reveal when we moved back into our house after the fire. I'm like, yeah, me too. But
Yeah.
nothing's like the kitchen's mostly done, but I didn't have it trimmed out at the top and I didn't have like HGTV is not reality. It's just kind of like watching a sitcom or I'm sorry, whatever we're in 30 minutes, the problem is solved. It doesn't happen that way. You
Right.
have to figure it out and there's going to be things on the fly. And then you also understand how forgiving caulk is.
Yeah.
Like how big a gap can the caulk
Yeah.
fill in? It can fill in a big gap. Let me just tell you.
Yes, because I'm more of an ish girl too, Michelle. I don't know if you know this. So I have just a teeny tiny little crutch, and my crutch is Greg, who's really good at DIY. Everyone's going to hear from
That's
Greg next week.
awesome.
But the thing that honestly is my inhibitor. Isn't that
Yeah.
terrible? Because I know like, well, Greg can do it, and Greg's
Right.
doing a really good job at it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do the ish job. But
Mhm.
every job I do is so incredibly empowering. Like that wall
Totally.
in Owen's room or the wall in the laundry room or whatever. It's just one more. Every time I master or not even master, try out, experiment with, feel like I'm not going to cut off my finger with the power tool, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I need a crown on my head and I need to go run
Totally.
in the street or something.
Yes. Or like I put the shiplap up on the wall. The other thing is also, like I said, knowing like your shortcuts, like Home Depot will cut things for you.
Yes. Yeah.
And like thinking smarter, not harder. So like I was only going to go halfway up on my wall. I was going to have a chair railing. And I was like, well, let's see here. The paneling is 4x8. My wall is actually 8 feet. The space that I have is actually 8 feet. So I could have it go up 6 feet, but why? Because I could just cut this puppy in half. I can have Home Depot cut it in half.
Yes.
Now all I have to do is cut out the outlet hole and I'm done.
Yes.
And that's all that it is. So like figuring out like how can you make your life easier? Where can you have give and take? Sure, okay, maybe you wanted it up here. Well, that's going to cost you more money because you're going to need more paneling. You're going to have extra. You're going to have,
Yep.
yeah, you're so just kind of thinking through all those things. And it's interesting what you say about Greg. So the shiplap wall that we did downstairs, a friend of mine helped out. Actually, my dad and I were working on it. My friend comes over who is very precise. And I didn't know that about him. He's looking up at the top because I was just going to smack some, molding up at the top, but we don't actually have any molding at the top of our house anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I was like, it'll be fine. He's like, no, Michelle, I'll bring my tools over. We'll do it right. I'm like, great. You want to do it right. That's awesome. So he helped. We did all that. There's been subsequent projects where I'm trying to figure out like, how am I doing this? So I would message him. I'd be like, Andy, hey, how do I do X, Y, and Z? He doesn't get back to me for one reason or another. And I have to tell you, that's the best thing that he could ever do, because it forced me to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so like, I can totally see what you mean about having Greg there, where some people are like, gosh, I wish my husband could do all that stuff. But
Yeah.
when you also want to do it, like it can make it a little stifling. And if he's a little bit more precise, then you're like, I don't know, am I doing it right? Is it? So it is having to figure it out is kind of the best thing for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that is kind of likens Greg to Andy in this situation is that Greg doesn't have any time.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
got it done. Here we go. We're going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the best thing for those women out there who are like, I want to do it. My husband is super handy, but he's not available. Pick up a tool and
Yeah.
get it done.
Yeah.
And what's the worst that's going to happen? You have
Yeah.
to redo it.
Right.
Okay. Like I
Yeah.
get it. That's time and money lost. Nobody likes to do that. But more than likely, you're not starting with $1,000 project. Like I would highly recommend you don't. Like start with something like board and batten and figure out the DIY around it. Like you don't have to do the boards. You can just do the battens. There's a million people out there on Pinterest who are showing you how to do these things. There's ways, there's little calculators that'll show you exactly how far to space everything. And, and before you like stick things on the wall, like write with pencil. It
Yeah.
comes off.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And instead of asking yourself, what is the worst that can happen, though I do think we need that exit plan just in case, asking yourself, what would happen if? Like, what's the best that can happen? But also, Michelle, I mean, I speak to all these women who want to have beautiful homes and they stay stuck, they don't do anything, they're embarrassed of their spaces, all the things.
Mhm.
Ask yourself, what would happen if you don't do it 3 years from now, 5 years from now? I mean, are you still wanting to live in a home that you loathe? That's terrible.
It
Like,
totally is.
it doesn't mean that you have to have, expensive things or fancy things but if you don't love your home, gosh, that just feels so sad to me.
Yeah. Well, and also there's so many ways around it. Like our couch right now is gray because, a few years ago that was the color. I
Yeah.
can't afford a new couch and I'm not buying a new couch, but the rest of my house is definitely warmer than the cool gray. And there's different things that you can do on that to kind of like mellow out the gray. It's okay. You can do slip covers. You can do like, there's 1,000 different ways that you can do it. So I can either be held back by the fact that my couch is gray,
Yeah.
or we can just move on and just keep working around it. And like, it'll
Right.
come. We'll
Right.
do that.
Right.
Or
Exactly.
maybe gray will come back in.
Yeah. Well, it likely will.
Probably.
It will. It will. Because beige is coming back in.
Yeah. Well, just the time I, get the beige couch, it'll like gray will be back in. I'll be
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, whatever. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Tell us your all-time favorite project to date.
Probably my fireplace.
Yeah.
Because I felt such accomplishment in getting that done. And it required so many different like little cuts and making a mantle. We have never lived in a home that had a mantle. And so putting the bracket on the wall and figuring things out too. Like I made a box, but I actually didn't enclose the bottom of the box because I wanted it wider or deeper than I had initially done. And I'm like, it's sitting on there. It's totally fine. Nobody's like
Yeah.
looking underneath to see it. It does the job. So I just think that project, like I look at that and I'm so like proud of what I did there and that I did that. And I just keep thinking like, if I could do that, anybody can do that. And I think, and you mentioned this a while back, like I think what separates the person who does it from the person who doesn't do anything is just the willingness to fail, the
Yeah.
willingness to get it wrong, and
Yeah.
the willingness to try.
Yeah.
And you also have to be willing to be vulnerable and ask questions. Like
Yeah.
I know there's a couple of guys at Home Depot that I know because I'm in there all the time, especially when I'm like in a project. And as women, honestly, let's be honest, a lot of time men in the home improvement store kind of look at us like we're just like this dumb chick that doesn't really know what she's doing. So when I come in with plans, they're like, oh, okay, like she actually does know what she's doing. And I just want I want to have somebody look at it and go, okay, is that going to work?
Yeah.
Because this is my plan. Is it going to work? And so being willing to ask questions of those people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned the Home Depot guy because, when I go to Lowe's, so I prefer that store, but it's kind of fun to chat with them because they are kind of, not everyone, but they're kind of the expert in their area. And
Yeah.
they're like my dad in much younger years, like who know a little bit of everything, who
Mhm.
got it figured out. And if they don't, they're going to find John down the
Yeah.
aisle. Who
Yeah.
can. And
Yeah.
I love it. But I also think too, if you have anyone in your circle, kind of like your Andy or your dad or someone who's 3 steps ahead of you, ask them because, when you are able to share your wisdom,
Yeah.
it's kind of a flattering thing, right? Like,
Totally.
wow, they want to know this from me. This thing that is so incredibly simple, they're asking my advice, but also how cool is it when it's your dad, right? Like,
Totally.
yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I know you've learned some mistakes along the way or learned.
Nope, none, zero, skip on to the next thing.
But let's say if you were to give like lots of pressure, one key piece of advice for that beginner from a mistake that you have learned from, what would it be?
Super simple. Measure twice, cut once. It applies to everything. It's not just about cutting things. It's measuring twice, 3, 4, 5 times. And by the way, get a tape measure that has the eighths of an inch on it.
Yeah.
Huge, because it doesn't have the 16ths of an inch, which you will need, but it's so much easier to be like, okay, well, if that's, 3/8, then I can figure out where the 16ths, but truly measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is, write out your plans, like look it over multiple times. It will save you from those in addition trips to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. I'm convinced any project you're doing, you're going to be there 2, 3 times. It doesn't matter how much you've planned it out. And the more you do them, the more you can anticipate. It's kind of like a recipe.
Yeah.
Like the first time you cook, you don't always, I'm going to need this or I'm going to need that, or you don't. Well, now, like we bake chocolate chip cookies all the time. I know if we're going to bake chocolate chip cookies, I know everything that I need. There's other recipes that I have not done as frequently where I don't know. Oh my goodness, I'm going to need paprika for that. It's not one that I normally have here. So it's going to be, but really looking over those, measuring twice, cutting once might be reading over those directions from Anna White or from some Pinterest person or whatever, like reading them over carefully, making sure you understand, watching a video, like just know, anticipate what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I love it. Okay, what is your next project?
Oh man, within our house, there's so many different things, but my mom has just asked me to do board and batten in one of their guest rooms. So
Oh,
I think that's my next project, which I'm like, that's so fun. Like I feel so you have to understand, my brother is a precise woodworker. He's a fireman, but my parents always were like, you need to like have a job that you can pay the bills. Your wife will probably appreciate that, but he's super creative. He's a lefty. Like he is like, that's all of his thing, but he lives an hour away.
okay.
And he's not as available with, work and kids and all that kind of stuff. So I feel super flattered that my mom and dad would even like, hey, you can do this, which you and I both know, like board and battens, it's a pretty basic project. It's pretty simple. You cut your battens, you get those up. You just need to figure out your spacing. So I think that's my next project. They're going on a cruise. So I'm hoping to do that while they're gone.
Oh, and then they'll get the grand reveal.
Yes. Well, they'll have to paint it. I'm going to let them do the painting. My mom loves to paint.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
yes,
Great.
but it'll be nice. Like I'll get it caulked and everything.
Yeah.
So it'll be all ready, but yeah.
Oh, that is so good. That is so good. Well, gosh, Michelle, it has been such a joy chatting with you. And do you mind if two things, if I share your Instagram, your DIY Instagram, so people can go and check it out?
Yeah.
Are you okay if I put this on my YouTube channel so people can
go for it? I look hideous, guys. I'm like in a project. I stood in the shower without the shower on and like dusted everything off. I even took my coveralls off. They're so dusty, but no, yes, do it, please.
Okay, yay.
You were the second podcast interview I've done where at the end they're like, "Oh, do you mind if I share this on YouTube?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Go for it. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I'm beauty queen over here too.
You're
So
always darling. And ladies, if you have not seen Danny's house, I don't know how much you show of it in your stories or I don't think you show a ton of it.
I don't
It
know.
is darling.
Oh,
So you are like, she's all that on a bag of chips. Like she is what she's telling you, she is doing and she has done and she's living. And that's what was so much fun, aside from like actually meeting you and finding out that you are exactly as you sound and as we've gotten to know each other, but just to see your space and that it is very attainable. It's very, it's like realistic. It's something everybody can do. And when you talk about doing DIY and adding personality, your space is so your space. Like it adds so much personality. So
oh,
that was such a joy to see your space.
thank you so much. Gosh, I'm getting a little teary with that. I just really, that means so much to me.
Well, I mean,
On several levels. One is that you say I'm exactly like I sound because, I mean, you're a podcaster too. You don't want to present yourself in any way that you aren't. And so when people tell me like, it sounds like we're friends already, or like we're having coffee. Like Michelle, I kind of have a feeling you're the same way. Like I look at the world like, oh my gosh, that is a friend I have not met yet. I'm that
totally.
annoying person on the airplane that I want to sit next to someone in order to chat with them and get
Right,
to
right.
know all about who they are.
Totally, totally.
But yeah, I don't share a whole lot on Instagram, and that is something that maybe will change if I ever have a content director or whatever. But really, one of the reasons is because I want them to stop scrolling a little bit.
Yeah.
Stop scrolling and start doing, because they are already inundated with Instagram and Pinterest and HGTV and all the things. And but sneak peek for anyone who's listening, next week, from the time of this airing, after Michelle's podcast is airing, Greg is coming on to chat about his little bit more advanced DIY, and then I'm going to be doing a video tour of our home.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
fun. Oh my
So I
gosh.
will be sharing a little bit. Of course, we are in the middle of packing all the things for our trip, so it might be a little messier and a little more summertime. I'm not going to
It's
worry.
real life.
Real life.
Like, like we live in our homes, which I think is such the downside to HGTV and Instagram. And that's not their intent, at least on HGTV. It's to show you a finished product. And I get that. But the reality is Legos on the floor, laundry around, like dishes in the sink and, all of those things.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but your
exactly.
home is beautiful. Your
Oh,
backyard. I loved your backyard. It's just
oh,
it's so inviting. And like, this is where somebody would want to be and hang out. And I think that too, like if you're waiting to live until your house is done, stop.
yeah.
Don't do that. And I say that kind of as a hypocrite because I did that. Like I didn't want to have people over to our house because it was ugly and it was plain and it was boring. And I had a friend who had a bigger house and it was more open in the pool and all the things. And she was like, Michelle, nobody cares. The kids don't care. And it's so true.
Yeah.
Now, I will say having a space that I am more proud of, it does make me open up my home more.
Yeah.
And I can see this kind of cycle happening again because our backyard is not done. And I feel like, oh, we live in Southern California. Like we can be outside all the time.
Ah,
And so I kind of feel like, oh, we can't really go outside. It's dirt right now. So we can't. But I feel that happen again where you're like, oh, I have to wait until it's this
right.
before I can have everybody over. But
Yeah,
if people aren't coming over because the way that your space looks, then they're not actually your friends.
exactly.
So find
Yeah.
a new group of friends and just open up your home. They're going to love it. They aren't going to see 90% of the things that you see.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I want to come down to California and help you with your backyard.
Oh my gosh, please.
That'd be so
Yes.
fun.
Oh my gosh. I can't wrap my head around the backyard space because it's small. Like this is how, for those people that have like excess space, that you could be like, well, we could put here, we could put here. Like, that's not how we live. Like, our living room is such a size that we need this size couch. Like, it can't go over 105 inches or whatever it is, but it's something like that. Our backyard is kind of the same way. Like, we don't have excess space. Every inch matters.
Yeah.
And it's kind of my husband's domain. Like, I could look in the kitchen and be like, oh, this is how I want it, boom, done, whatever. But we look in the backyard and I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know what to do. And I don't really want grass. I don't want like, so it just boggles my mind. Like, what does somebody do in here without spending $10,000?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Right. Make it a space that you want to be in that doesn't have the dirt, but that
Yes.
doesn't cost a whole lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've looked at all the things and I don't know.
Okay.
Then we kind of like come back to square one because we're like, well, I
Yeah.
also don't want to just like settle and be like, oh, well, we'll just put DG down that like checks a box and it's done until we're like, actually, that's really what we love. So yes, come down here. Help me. I would love it.
Send me a picture and maybe I'll have some ideas.
I will.
Awesome. Okay. Well, it has been lovely chatting with you. I feel like I could chat for hours and hours.
Same.
Maybe we can have you on another time.
I'm down.
Okay.
I will have messed up other projects and have learned other things. It'll be so great.
Awesome. Oh, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. I hope that you enjoyed that conversation with Michelle just as much as I did. Whether I am chatting with her in person or over Zoom, it is a complete joy. And I hope that you were able to feel a little bit of that in your earbuds today. But there were some things that she mentioned that I think were great takeaways. So I'm going to highlight 5. 1 is to throw perfection out the window. Now you got the impression, and it is a good one, that she is an ish girl. She kind of rolls with the punches, and that's what makes her so beautiful. But even though she's an ish girl, she also has a plan. And that plan, even when well thought out, even when she asks the Home Depot guy, you come across some things within the DIY world that sometimes you need to modify on the spot. And so having that flexibility is always a good thing. Number 2, don't be afraid to fail. Staying stuck in fear is not a good place to be. So what is that first small step that you can do? What is it? Number 3, ask for help, even if it is the Home Depot guy. But I bet you know someone who is 2 steps ahead of you in the DIY journey. Maybe they know how to paint their walls. Maybe they know how to wallpaper. Maybe they know how to paint furniture or hang board and batten. Don't be afraid to ask for help, even if it is the guy from Home Depot. Number 4, this is a good one. This is, I think, universal for any kind of craft project. Quilting, woodworking, any of it. Measure twice, cut once. Yep. You're going to hear that takeaway next week in next week's show as well. All right. And the last one, board and batten really is an easy DIY to start with. It sure is, friends. Go ahead and try that one this weekend. All right. If you are enjoying this summer saving series, I want to hear about it. Would you come on over and leave a review for the show? Leaving a review allows more mamas just like you to find it. More mamas who are done scrolling, who are done gathering all the inspiration on HGTV, Pinterest, Instagram, and start doing. And we want more mamas to join that mission. So leave a review, let others see the show too, and it lights me up to know how the show is impacting you. All right, friend, until next time, I'll see you soon.